Hey, stream is up. Hopefully everything's working. Just going to give this a few moments for everything to sort itself out here. Right. Think got everything good. My laptop isn't overheating yet. It's a good day. Cool. All right. So at the last minute, user Coop on Slack asked for a style components clone for hyperapp. However, this was super last minute. I already set up everything to go ahead with Cypress. So, I'm a little conflicted because I got things set up now. But, Coop, you cool with next week we can do style components for hyperapp? Is that cool? Give me some thumbs up or something in Slack or YouTube. I'm watching both chats. I can see everything. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come up with a better way to get feedback for episodes and probably not ask literally half an hour before I start the stream what I should do. Although Cypress was a request from earlier this week, and yeah, totally the dude that requested. I don't think he's on. Just he's slacking, but that's okay. Yeah. So Cypress. So I'll give you the quick rundown. Cypress is a front-end testing framework. It's maybe setting itself up to be like kind of a spiritual successor of Selenium, and Selenium was for like kind of doing automated browser testing. Cypress takes a completely different approach. So there's a lot of tools right now that use Selenium, and Selenium's kind of slow. And if I recall correctly, it's kind of a Java app that acts as a server and lets you kind of send stuff back and forth to the web browser. And apparently, it does it in a very slow way. I don't know. I think there's lots of smart people behind Selenium development, and even Cypress, and both are really good tools. I'm gonna go with Cypress because, first of all, any experience I've had with Selenium usually involves a couple hours of me trying to figure out how to configure it, and I don't know. It's new. I'm sure there's lots of tutorials out there already on setting things up. Otherwise, with Selenium. So yeah, so I nabbed the to-do list app off of CodePen. So this is George's to-do list, which I don't know does the job. There's kind of a few filters you can have, so you can have look at all, look at only to do, look at things that are done. You can add by typing something and pressing enter. You can also add by typing and clicking a button. And the code itself isn't too bad either. So this is 100% just kind of ripped off of CodePen. Thanks, George. So all this is his code. I have not touched it or looked at it or modified it in any way. So you know you're getting the good stuff. Yeah. So what we're gonna do is investigate how do we test this app. Specifically with like a Selenium or a Cypress, you're looking at doing like an end-to-end test, which is typically instead of writing a test that checks your functions that they do the right thing, an end-to-end test is mostly does the UI respond the way you think, and it is typically built of like more stories. So a unit test, I would write a test that would be like, does my function return this? Whereas with an end-to-end, it's more like when I do the following things, Does it break? Does it do the expected thing? Do I get the DOM, response that I expect? So I set up a few tests already, but we're gonna go through a bit of the install process first, just so you know I'm not doing anything too crazy. If there we go. Cool. So delete my node modules. I'm gonna keep Cypress in here because I've already started some tests. But when you first run Cypress, it's going to create this folder for you. So I'm just gonna open up a new tab, and we're gonna do a yarn install once my terminal catches up with me. Cool. So Cypress is a bit of a heavier dependency, and that gives me some mixed feelings, but I think it's been well done, and I think Selenium is just as big. So, take from that what you will. Oops. Oh, that's interesting. Let's keep going back, because apparently I don't know how to use a browser. Alright, start this guy back up. Okay, so that's still all downloading there. Lots of fun excitement going on. Yeah. Sometimes I wish I had like better conversational skills so I could, I don't know, come up with something. But that's okay. A little bit of coffee, and I'm good to go. Hopefully, with conversation. Yeah. Are we good? No, we're still waiting. Still waiting. Okay. Well, I guess I'll run us through the tests that I have. We can also look at the what Cypress does by default. So Cypress has you can like set some overrides for config. We don't need to do that in our case. I can't think of a good reason why we would. And then tests look like the average spec test. One thing that I have mixed feelings on is they kind of use a describe and a context, which typically context and describe do almost the same job, other than like semantically, like in English, they have slightly different meanings, but whatever. So we're gonna look at these tests. So these are some ones I wrote, and I already found a bug, so I kind of stopped there. So we could figure out how to fix it, and we'll just check on there. Cool. So that's good. Oh yeah, I'm also using Webpack and some JSX Babel stuff. I don't know that matters too much, but just as a heads up, that was kind of what all those dependencies on top of Cypress were. Yeah, so we got our first test. This one, yeah, this one's, I don't know, maybe not necessary, but we're checking to see that our title is set properly. There might be some better ways. I think we maybe I'll say B, get like an exact equal, or should equal. One thing I don't like about Cypress is, I don't know, it seems kind of loosey-goosey, and I'm guessing that has something to do with like a plugin system, so you could easily add like a should matcher as a string. Not a huge fan of that. It's a little too loose for me, but that's okay. Someone else is probably loving it. But cool. So I'm just gonna open up another terminal window, and so for Cypress to start it, it's pretty simple. Probably don't need this, and we'll get into that in a second. So Cypress open, and that opens up a control panel that lets us, do our tests. So I'm gonna monkey around with my windows a little bit, so hopefully we can see. In fact, I don't think we'll need this window open as much, so I'm gonna drag that off, and we're gonna do a yarn test. Yarn test probably isn't the right word for this. I suspect it's going to be like, probably change it to yarn Cypress, because the way that it's set up is it doesn't really run the tests, so it pops open this window, which I'm guessing is like an Electron thing. I haven't investigated their source code much, but yeah. So let's assume it's Electron, and we get some configuration stuff. So here it found my my list spec.js, which is this file. And I'm pretty sure it's just looking for like an underscore spec or just a spec.js. Yeah, not entirely sure, but yeah. So you can log in. So Cypress has like a whole online dashboard system. I haven't looked at that yet, and I don't know that it's worth looking into in terms of like, hey, this is how you use Cypress. This is how you do end-to-end testing. Yeah, and then they got a link to docs. I'm guessing some sort of like help page. Um, and I'm guessing there's different types of tests that you can write. Like, I don't know what you do other than integration. So support is going to be like, yeah, like just looking at their folder structure. So they have fixtures, which is going to be like dummy data of some sort. Integration, which are actual tests. Plugins, I suspect this is just a bunch of loaders or kind of drop-in files that we can toss in. So I'm not 100% sure if these end up being npm packages. I haven't looked. I'm guessing that there's a decent ecosystem for Cypress, but yeah, I don't know yet. And support. So this I'm assuming is more like setting some global variables or some data that's not really a plugin or a fixture, but needs to be available for an integration test. So yeah, not too bad. Oh, that is not what I want. There we go. All right, so let's check out our test. So we have title, probably not a good test, but in some senses it lets us verify that we're on the right page. Can add an item via enter. So there's some kind of like, again, this isn't my thing. So I come from like a functional programming background. So when there's things like to make the bot controller kind of do a press enter and you have it like inside your string, that seems to me like it's ripe for some issues down the road. But it works. It reads well. So we'll see. I'm open to being wrong. We'll just say that I'm opinionated, as most programmers are. But yeah, so can we add an item by pressing enter? So we know from if you've looked at the code pen that George has up, you can type something, press enter, it works. So we can find using get. So well, okay, so maybe we'll go back a few seconds. So this file gets some global variables available to it, which are describe, context. You got some like before and after hooks, it, and cy. And each of these tests is isolated. So if I run this test has no idea, which is why both can use li first, because I know I'm only adding one item in each test. So as a result, as far as I'm currently aware, this is a completely serial process. One thing that they could do, so when I show you when it runs tests, they could do something where it opens up a series of tabs and each tab does stuff. Although I suspect Chrome might disallow interactions in non-focus tabs, or there might be some sort of security implications with that. But that would be neat, because definitely with the default tests that come with Cypress, it makes you open up like the Cypress website and go through a series of tests, and it actually takes quite a while because everything has to be done serially. Anyway, sorry, a little bit of a rant. Cool, and then so we have a similar test after adding with enter, which is can we add with the button? And again, since these are isolated, I can just check that the first list item contains our text. And so this test, which actually breaks, which is can we just spam the button and add our to-do items, but have them be empty? Which we can do, and that sounds like a bug. I guess another thing to address before I run these tests is typically with end-to-end, you're going to have a lot more steps than this. Because the to-do app is reasonably small, these tests are going to be much shorter. But if you get into a bigger SPA where you want to, let's say you get a bug report saying when you go to this page and interact with it in this way, go to another page and then come back, something either persists that shouldn't or doesn't persist and should, then you'd have a test that you would click on all these items and kind of make sure that you can get the browser in the same state that the bug reporter had. Anyway, let's run these. I'm putting that off, so we'll see. It might open here, it might open in my other window. Of course it did, but that's okay. We'll just pop that right in here. Alright, so it's taking a few seconds to load things up. Cool. Alright, and yeah, so our last test fails because we were able to click the button and not have an empty unordered list. And, pardon me, so I think speaking of this, maybe not a bug, maybe a bug depending on how anal you are with semantic HTML, but this could be an ordered list instead of an unordered list. And to us as developers, it maybe doesn't matter because we style away all the ugly default, bullets or numbers. But for things like screen readers, maybe it's slightly more important than you think. So we're not going to change that, but that's when you're developing apps, just think about that. Not a big deal either way for this, though. All right, so we've got a bug, and this should be true, and it fails. So let's see if we can fix that. This is a super easy fix. Actually, every time I fiddled with this app, I automatically just kind of go in and do the fix, which may or may not make me a bad person. All right, we'll scroll down to the actions. Cool, so we have an add which resets our input state and uses it to add a value. And I think what should probably happen is, let's bump this in. And, oh, no, there we go. Cool. So, probably what we want to be able to do here is just do if state.input is an empty string, then we do an early exit. And did I miss an indent? Oh, yeah, there we go. Cool. Alright, so I'm going to close this and get it. Oh, there we go. Stop it and then rerun our tests, which again it may. Oh, actually stay in the right window this time. Cool. So typically you wouldn't do a stop and restart. You kind of want the changes live. And so far I've had kind of like mixed results about the changes propagating when I think they're going to propagate. But cool. So that worked. That passes our test. And yeah, so let's see. There's probably some other things that we can test, which are going to require a little bit of thought. So end-to-end tests, typically how I end up writing them is I write unit tests initially, and at some point someone's gonna contact me, whether it be a client or like kind of a user through the client, and they're gonna say we got a bug report. When I do this, it doesn't work. and I have to figure out what this part is, right? Like how that looks in code. So maybe we can experiment around a little bit, and we'll see if we can find a bug or a behavior that's maybe not expected. So let's try, get eggs is a great to-do list item. We see that our input clears out, so that's good. And maybe I get rid of get eggs there. Go into our to-do. Well, that was a little jarring. So what's going on here is it's only showing you the two filters that you're not on, but there's technically 3 filters. There's all, done, and to do. And that seems kind of odd. So what if, as part of our initial state, so this is a little bit more unit testy, but let's say I can see all filters. Alright, so what we want to do is, so cy.get is backing on to like a document.query selector, so we can do any sort of query selecting with that you would expect. Yeah, so let's do this. Let's see what do we have here. I guess we could also see this in code, but we'll inspect here. It's all the same. Okay, so this is just an a tag and a span with some blank hrefs. So that's not super great in general, and I think we can maybe make this a little better. So let's see, how do we do this? So the first thing I can think of is how do we query? So in this case, I think these are the only anchor tags. So if I look at like our UL, we just have an li. It's pretty blank. We don't have any other anchors. So to me, it sounds like we could do something like get a and all right, we're gonna switch this up a little bit, George. I apologize. But so what we want to be able to test is that we can get the 3 filters, and we know which filter is which. So my initial thought is this. This might not be the right answer, by the way, but so let's do filter by. Alright, so now when I click there, filter by to do, filter by done. So that gives us enough that we can query. So what if we did href equals filter by to do? Too many. Filter by done and filter by all. Alright, so we're going to run that. Test update. Alright, so it looks like one of our filters failed. And that's exactly what we expected, because we know that George is filtering it. So let's get rid of that filter. And maybe there's a better way that we can do that. Okay, so now we can see all 3. And click on that. Technically that's no op, so if I did get eggs and get bacon, get bread, and let's say we brought home the bacon already, and we check in our to-do, so that's done. Cool. So all that works, and clicking on the filter that we already have is fine as well. And maybe there's some more expressive ways that we can deal with that. So what if we did a disabled? That's going to be key is the same as state dot. I think it was dot filter. Yeah. All right, so let's inspect to see that this did what we think. So we're technically on the all, and all right, so disabled didn't get passed through, even though that is certainly a correct attribute. So let's try disabled here. Nope. Are we? Okay, let's we're gonna go back a little bit here. May have just gotten something wrong. Ah, yes, there we go. So filter info key. Yeah, knew it was something a little more. So cool. Let's bring that in. In that case, I think we can stick with the truthy value. I'm pretty sure hyperapp will do the right thing. Maybe not. U is not defined. I don't disagree. Oh, there we go. Sometimes I just start smashing buttons. That's what Vim's all about. Like, at some point you just start smashing buttons, and sometimes it does what you want. Alright, so eggs, bacon, bread, and we'll observe that all should be disabled. Hey, cool. And so all those views should look the same, and if we get rid of bacon, cool. And we could probably use a little bit more feedback. Also, let's filter by all. Isn't being seen. Okay, let's just we'll refresh that. I'm pretty sure it was just an out of sync issue. And again, this might have something to do with the tab being focused and the window being focused. Yeah, okay, cool. So that's fine. I'm going to move this over because I don't think we're going to write more than just the one integration file. So I'm just going to kind of align these up. Cool. And can I make this a little cool? All right. So so now that we have that test in, I guess there's one more step that we can do, but this is really just a nice to have. Is with our anchors, maybe disabled. We could do something like font variant. No, is it not font variant? Is it font dic? Sometimes you just gotta look it up. CSS add strikeout. Alright, we'll check with good old Stack Overflow. Oh wow, this guy wants something real magical, which I don't want at all. Alright, maybe we'll MDN this. MDN's my go-to. Text decoration. Yes. Is it strike through? Like that. Okay. I'll accept it. Overline? What's overline? Text decoration line. Oh, there we go. Line through. Alright. There's no way that'll ever be confusing with the done item list. And yeah, maybe I thought it was disabled, but I guess we gotta do it like this. So just saying if the attribute exists. No. Decoration. That looks right to me. Oh, it's text decoration, not font. Sometimes I can read. Like, I swear that I occasionally read stuff. Alright, that looks pretty awful. Let's just do an underline. No. No, I don't really like that either. Let's do color white. Just like totally just messing up the all the hard work that that George put into design. If you don't know, George does some pretty nice minimalistic design things. I don't know. I'm a little jealous. I can't do it. I'm not design oriented. My dad's actually an artist, but not much of that passed to me. So, you know. What can you do? Sorry, I just check my other windows, making sure I'm not missing any chat or anything. Cool. So yeah, that works. And let's see. So we can't add any empty items. We can switch in between these. So I guess one neat thing we could do is, so this is going to be not really initial state anymore. So let's make a new context. And again, a context is it's only like a way for you to mentally break up tests. So the fact that these are in different contexts has no real bearing on like how it's executed by any means. So this is going to be, we want to test that when we click on a done, that in between the different tabs it shows up in different places. So let's say filters, just filters, I guess, because then our test could be more descriptive. Let's see, adding an item makes it visible in all and to do, but not done. Alright, so let's, we're going to kidnap a little bit of, maybe we'll kidnap this one because it's a little better and closer to what we want. Alright, so we add get eggs, and we could do a cy.get a href. Click, and move click down there just so it's a little easier to read between these two. And this one we want filter by all. And the first item there should be get eggs. But we also want to be able to go into filter by to do, and we can still see it. And then filter by done, and we're going to change this a little bit. So we should find ul empty, because there shouldn't be anything there. Alright, so that kicked off our test. And we'll just wait for this sucker to keep going through. Cool. So another neat thing about Cypress, so I'm going to mostly full screen this, just so you can really see what's going on. So each test that passes, you can open it up and see the DOM state in each individual test. So let's say a test wasn't working that's kind of bigger like this. You kind of want to be able to go through and see what each step looked like, and maybe there's a good reason why it failed and an easy solution. On top of that, I'm pretty sure we get access to, this. So what this lets you do is kind of find what element you want to click. So you could go into this, and with the app loaded up, you can figure out what selector you should be clicking on. Like here, this is like maybe a little overkill with like nth child 1a. 2 and 3. Like, yeah, not those aren't the greatest, but I think if there's IDs, it prefers IDs over strange selectors. In fact, we can test that. That's a very testable thing that we can check out. All right, so let's we're gonna go up in here, and we're going to do let's add some IDs here. So ID, and we'll do the same deal. Filter by key. Alright, and then we'll check this out. I think we need to rerun the test so we can get the new DOM. Oh, hey, so I'm gonna say that you're Wally. Oh, I see. Is this like a Wally reference? Like was that Pixar or Disney? Does Cypress work through the DOM only? Um, are you asking if you can do like data tests as well? So, like if A equals 3? Oh, so Cypress, with their tests, you can do any kind of test. So, like, I guess the benefit there is you don't want to have like Mocha and Chai or like Ava or Jest and Cypress, right? Because a lot of these test frameworks are really bulky. So the more things you add in, the longer it's going to be to download and whatever. And that just sucks. Um, so with Cypress, yeah, you could have a test that's like you hang some functions off of window maybe, and then you can do like window dot some function, and then inspect the result and kind of make an assertion based on that. Does that answer your question? We can try making one as well. Let's see, what would be a good one? So I guess maybe a good way to do that would be window dot hyperinterop. Okay, so another thing, this is like totally just like a rant and not necessary, is for some reason I've really been getting into semicolons lately. I've always hated semicolons. I thought that they were like awful, and now I've been adding them everywhere, and I can see that George is of my similar mind a few months ago where don't add in extra stuff, and I totally get it, and I'm not mad, but yeah, you might see me kind of adding in semicolons here because it kind of gets to me. um, yeah. Okay, so let's comment out that. All right. So all that is working, and there's maybe some other tests that we could write here. Let's see. I don't know. Do you have any good ideas for a test? I guess we can test the interop stuff that I just added and then totally just stopped looking at. So yeah, let's maybe we'll add another integration. That seems like the right thing. What do we want to call this? I guess this would be more like would it be integration even? I don't know, but we'll call it data spec JS, and just data being that we're going to be looking at some of the data, and we'll see how Cypress wants to handle that. Cool. So we're going to have a describe, and this is going to be list data. So we're just describing tests that involve more of the data side, and we're going to have a context, and in this case we're going to test, let's see what actions we have here. So we have an add test here which modifies a handful of the state. So let's start with that. So this will be actions. Do I want to call it actions? Yeah. Let's actually do that. So list actions, and the context here is going to be add. And will this even be? I don't know. This is a good one. I guess we actually have to kind of do a few steps. But that's not actually a bad thing either. Yeah, do adding items is our context, and before each, we're going to do something like cy dot, I think it's dot go, dot go or dot URL. It's one of the two. Oh, dot visit. All right, so in our case, we're debugging our local app, so that's 8080. Cool. So what we want to be able to do is inspect the state that we get back. Oh, sorry. Let me just catch up with what you're saying. So, cool. I answered your question. Glad to hear that. And yeah. So testing is there's a fine line between things that you need to take into account. So you only want to test as little as possible per thing. So typically with a unit test, you're going to be testing exactly one thing per test. With end-to-end, you kind of have globs where you're doing like a particular stream of actions, and you want to be able to write your tests in such a way that you're only testing things that you're responsible for. So, for instance, I don't want to just test that a button click works, because I should be expecting that the web browser can just do that. So what I would want to do is I would want to test that the action that I'm calling is doing the right thing and it's being propagated through the app. So like maybe an example from up here. Yeah, so this last test that I wrote was actually probably a good example. So I don't want to test that DOM input or like hyperapp does the right thing with events, because that's not really the right thing. But I do need to set up a bunch of things that interact with the DOM, right? So I'm clicking on buttons, or inspecting that list items are correct, or doing inputs. But I don't actually want to have like a test afterwards that's like cy.get input contains. Actually, I think it's should contain get eggs. So this test seems like it would be good, but it really isn't, because I'm not testing any of my own functionality. Right now I'm testing, does Cypress do the right thing, or does like Chrome as a browser do the right thing? And I need to have like a certain level of trust that the tools I'm using do what they say they're going to do. And if they don't, then that's a test that those tools should implement, and I shouldn't have to. So that's why a test like this is pretty useless, even though it looks like it's doing something useful. Does that make sense? Does that answer kind of part 2 of your question? I hope it does. Also, the delay of YouTube is a little painful, so I'm kind of thinking about maybe switching it off to some other tool other than YouTube, so you don't have to wait. I don't know how many seconds it is, but like 15 to 30 seconds to get my response. But yeah, let's delete that, because I'm pretty sure that's not going to do the right thing anyway. But I'm going to continue on, and then hopefully when everything catches up, you can confirm that that answered your second question. But yeah, so let's see what sort of data tests we can do. So I want to do something. It can set the input state. So here I know that I have access to the DOM. I'm curious. I'm pretty sure I get access to the environment. So let's just kind of do a quick little scroll. And do I get access directly to the document? Let's see, we get like an underscore. What does underscore do? So that's Lodash. Okay, I don't care about that right now. Get a $sign. Includes jQuery. Okay, so I don't care about either of those two. Oh, document. This looks right. Or do I get a dot window? Either of these things would be great. Oh yeah, we got a dot window. So get the window object of the page that's currently active. Cool. So what if we did something? There might be a better way of doing this, so I'm not saying this is the right way, but we're going to say, no, I don't like this, never mind. Let's do const window is going to be cy window. In fact, we could probably just get the thing that we care about, which is going to be hyperapp interop, I believe is what I called it. It was just hyperinterop. One of the two. It should probably be app, because that's what it is. Alright, let me just catch up with you here now. Why would it include a specific DOM elements in the test at all? Alright, so yeah, knowing what things to test is tough, right? So knowing what DOM elements should I include and how should I access those. So with an end-to-end test, you're going to want to know DOM elements. You're going to have like a basic idea of the structure of your web app so you can do a test. Because with end-to-end, what you're doing is you're saying, if a user is on my page and does these things, does it work? Which is very different from like a unit test where you're saying, I'm a developer and I wrote this function and I need to know this function does what I say it's going to do. So there's like some subtle differences, right? So with a client and you want to do an end-to-end test, you want to reproduce the state that the client got into on their browser, because then you can say, yes, this is a verified bug and I know how to reproduce it, versus like on the unit test side, you're saying that you have like a piece of functionality that's broken that impedes the app from running. But in terms of like, can you keep everything agnostic to swap out frameworks? Probably not. Unit tests are a little better, so like Mocha and Jest are almost completely interchangeable. Ava is kind of its own separate beast. What other big unit test frameworks are there in JavaScript? I guess those are really the big ones. Then you got like Jasmine. I guess Jasmine would be pretty similar to Mocha and Jest. There might be like a little bit of difference there, but I think mostly interchangeable. In terms of swapping off something like Cypress for Selenium, I don't think you're going to get a lot of reuse in that code. I could be completely wrong. I haven't touched Selenium in a couple years now. But I would say don't write your tests under the guise that you're going to swap off frameworks later. Like you kind of have to make like a bit of a dedicated decision when you pick a tool that either you're agreeing that you're going to personally stick with the testing tool through thick and thin, or that you're okay with in the future spending a lot of time to swap off a framework. And that's maybe more of a tuition and experience thing. So if you're familiar with maybe 2 or 3 test frameworks, and yeah, you want to be able to swap those off, maybe that's okay. Maybe you can figure that out. But yeah, you're gonna have to make that call each project you make of whether or not the tools and framework that you picked are the right ones. And I think with a tool like Cypress, like maybe there's a bit of a question just because it's a newer thing. With something like Selenium, there's definitely some warts there, and you're gonna have to kind of decide, is it worth dealing with the warts of Selenium at the price of like maybe there's a lot more documentation tutorials available for it, whereas Cypress being newer, you've got to kind of make the opposite decision of like this is newer and supposedly better, which I don't have a good opinion on yet. But yeah, that's going to be a call that you got to make. But don't approach any project going, if I write it this way, can I swap it off? Am I from up north? Yeah, I'm from Canada, so you might be detecting a little bit of Canadian, eh? Not too much. So, in terms of like latitude and longitude, I'm actually a little bit under New York, so I'm in Ontario, kind of the part of Canada that kind of is shoved into the U.S. a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know. We all have accents, language and everything is really weird. But yeah. Anyway, let's keep going. I think we have enough time to maybe write one more test, and then I'll probably call it before I unintentionally exhaust myself, which I've been known to known to do while I'm streaming. Oops. Okay, so we want to know, do we get the right things out of input when we update it? So let's try. Let's see what's a good way to do this. So I think we can do like side dot. Man. Do we get like a dot equal? No. Okay. So I don't really care about DOM here. What I want is I want to be able to pipe a value into the pipeline for testing, which I was very sure I just kind of saw and accepted, and it worked out okay. Maybe we'll just check out mini match. What is this? I don't know what this is. Let's check it out. Oh yeah, another thing. So you got like new tools and stuff. It's totally okay to not know anything about them. This life of developers, basically looking up code, and I believe there's a bunch of comics and jokes about the WTFs per minute, and head scratching, reading documentation. It's all true. Okay, so mini match is totally not what I want. Maybe there's an example. Okay, so if I didn't want to do any of this, and I guess maybe node modules. That seems like the sort of thing that I would want to test, maybe. So not that I want to test a node module specifically, but I do want to test data, and maybe this will show me the way. Okay, so they're just recommending bringing in like an expect, or I guess we get an expect matcher. Okay, that's cool. So I'm guessing they're going to use something like chai. So this will just be like expect hyperapp interop dot input, and we want to pass in value test to equal, and this should give us an object that looks like input test, because input is our key. Let's just make sure I got this. Okay, so let's we'll new line that so it's a little more readable. Pop this guy open here, and I think I have my Cypress window over here, and now we want to do our data test, so this might take a second for it to swap off. We'll remake my windows nice, because sometimes you just gotta have nicely organized windows. Cool, so can set the input state, so could not read input of undefined. So that's interesting. Oh, I see, because it's not actually seeing this, and it's not a problem with that. Alright, let's, maybe we can expose some data, so let's do hyperapp interop. So I'm just curious if Yeah, if this is even possible. Like, I assume so. That's also an interesting layout. I don't know what's going on there. So console is clear and we got undefined. Okay, so what if we do cy.window? Start there. Console is clear, that's fine. Okay, so so this window is not the window that I think it is. I think that's kind of how this is going. But when I get window, maybe there's some extra config I can do. So let's go back into the API, open up the good old window object here. And so we get some options. So what options? So we get a log displays command and command log, timeout. So neither of those are particularly what I'm interested in. Oh, I see. So this is a promise to get the remote window. Okay, let's try that then. So let's do cy.window. Then, yeah, so maybe we'll call this, we can call it window. Why not? I don't know if this is actually going to be a problem because I don't understand the context that we're in. So maybe, yeah, maybe we'll just do win. And we're going to grab all that. Toss it in there. Go 3. No, we need 2. And cool. And that means over here, this can just be win. And maybe this will work. Come on, big money, no whammies. Okay, so expected. Cool. So yeah, that did work. However, I think we want deep EQ maybe. I don't know what expect framework this is using, and they also don't don't list it on here. Utilities maybe. What utilities do you have? Because that doesn't really look like the sort of things I want. So we got like promise. Yeah, I was just kind of hoping, hoping it would just tell me which expect framework it's using, so I can know how to word that. So deep equals in a function. Interesting. And did anything about that example reveal that to me? I don't think so. I looked pretty fast though, so let's see. Cool, so we test the module, so he's not importing any specific expect. This kind of seems like maybe a chai. Let's just do chai.js. It's the only downside of using all sorts of different test libraries is they all get kind of jumbled. Okay, I think we can do a deep EQ. Hey, cool. That worked. Yeah, so it looks like you can do some data. With hyperapp, you're going to have to do a little bit of extra work because you need the interop if you want to test your actions individually. That's not too bad though. I expected it to be a little more rough, and I wasn't sure that wasn't sure if I was going to give up before the end of the stream for that. But hey, it all worked out. And I'm going to move this off screen again because I don't think we care about that view as much right now. But yeah, so we could do another test. So this would be it can add after setting input. And this test is going to look reasonably similar as well. Sorry, let me yeah, get all that in there. We don't care about that as much anymore. We just need to actually do it. And this will be add, and add doesn't take any parameters. And this deep equal object is going to be a little more intense. So it looks like we should be getting an empty string for input now. And our to-dos should probably include our new item, which is going to be done false, and value will be test. And ID sounds like it's going to be 1, which I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be correct. However, we will find out, and then we can always correct our test or correct our ID generation, one or the other. Alright, so can add after setting input also worked. And all that looks good. Alright, so we did it. We got Cypress up and running, which was pretty painless. I got it kind of installed ahead of time, but yeah, not too bad. In terms of cross-platform, or sorry, cross-browser, I think Cypress only runs Chrome. Oh, and Electron. I don't know if Electron's really worth testing unless you're building an Electron app. Yeah, and I read their blog, and it looks like they want to support some other browsers on here as well. I don't know if or when that's going to happen, so that'll be interesting to watch, at least. And yeah, I don't know. We got everything working, so not horrible by any means. And the amount of code for getting a test up is, I think, what I would consider typical for the average kind of like spec style test, and pretty readable. So I think my only main gripes with this, and these are gripes I have with other things like Mocha and Jest, is that everything's just kind of magically hanging off global. It's actually one reason why I really like Ava, is it forces you to set like an internal context for each test, which I've covered in, I think, a few episodes back where I did some tests for oh, what did I do it for? Maybe it was What the Clock. It could have been my old list app, but yeah, interesting either way. Oh, my parents are trying to call me. Oh well, I can talk with them later, because right now I'm talking with my YouTube friends. Alright, so let me just catch up here. So, looks like it might be really easy to set up some custom tests, though, hyperapp interop plus some lib for validation. For cross-browser. Oh, so are you... Yeah, you're gonna have to expand on that just a little bit. So custom app or custom tests through hyperapp interop plus some lib for validation. So yeah, like you can team up these tests, right? So for instance, with my data test and how I'm using interop, I could do this, and on top of that, I can still do like cy dot what was it, find, no, it was get li, and what else was it, that's what I get for being kind of a little green with this lib, but it's okay. So yeah, it'd be like should contain test. I guess it's the lowercase t for this particular one. Yeah, so I can do both like data, but then also check the DOM as well. Oh, IE11 unit tests. Okay. So with IE11 and a lot of browsers you can do through Selenium. There's also some online services for doing browser tests. Typically, and this will probably sound bad, but my experience with unit testing with Internet Explorer in general is I write tests to make it work in Chrome and other kind of uh, variants of Chrome and generally their engines, so like Safari and I think Firefox runs their own engine, but they both have like near equivalents, right? So I write my test for there, and for IE, I'll just have a VM that I boot up and test things in IE on like a per case basis. And I've typically found that I just end up adding in like the appropriate polyfills, and it's usually smooth sailing. And otherwise, it's kind of render bugs, which maybe we could cover with Cypress. So like I think there's the ability to do image snapshots in Cypress. Let me just bring this up here. We can do a quick check. But I know Selenium has something for that, or at least it used to. So let's see. For the API, can I take an actual picture and compare? A screenshot. Cool. Take a screenshot under the test. Alright, so am I able... Does the screenshot actually let me compare? By default? Maybe not. Um, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Takes a screenshot when a test fails. Okay, so I was hoping that it would, by default, give me like basically a screenshot to compare, so like a data snapshot. But yeah, so I think for if you specifically need IE11, Cypress isn't the tool. At least it isn't yet. So they have a blog. Let me just. I guess I'm kind of advertising for them now a little bit. Hey Cypress, hope you guys don't mind all the things I'm saying about you. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I was going through here and I noticed something about other browsers. And maybe it was in their GitHub repo. I'm not sure. I'm very certain, but yeah. So just kind of reading with your IE stuff. Um, I, I haven't yet found an effective way to test IE, like in comparison to other browsers. I believe Edge and kind of the future of IE in general involves like headless tests that are done reasonably properly. With Selenium, there might be some configuration to do like, boot up my VM and then send over the VM to test that way. But I don't have a good solution for IE, and I'm sorry. uh, yeah, again, the best solution I've had is just make sure like check what functions you're using. The big culprits are like array functions. Is some older IEs have a lot of notorious problems. Um, yeah, and just kind of be aware of the code that you're implementing and test to make sure that it works in the browsers that your users are using. IE11 is, yeah, it's not too bad. Like, they did resolve a lot of issues, but there are definitely warts. Um, yeah, I would say, yeah, try rolling some stuff on Cypress. Oh wow, they have a lot of issues. I guess they're pretty green still. But yeah, let's see. Do they have anything for IE11? Hey, there we go. Alright, so just kind of skimming over this. So yeah, I guess they're backing onto like the kind of generic WebDriver spec, but there might be some warts with yeah, with IE and using older WebDrivers. Yeah, so I'm sorry we don't have a better solution. Now, like, another thing is a lot of the MDN and like kind of Microsoft documentation is kind of obscure, but you might have some luck kind of just Googling through the Microsoft Developer Network. Uh, yeah, I guess their site in general, and they might have a good solution for doing browser tests. Maybe one that's better than mine, which is kind of, if it works on Chrome, cool. If it doesn't work on IE, boot up a VM and figure out why. Um, Another thing with older IE, which I don't know how generically true it is, but I've run into a lot of cases where the error output that I get, so like thrown exceptions and stuff, don't actually give me the right or good information. So IE is just it's it's a problem. I know that Microsoft recognized that when they started writing Edge, right? It was to be like, hey, maybe we can make this a slightly better experience. So maybe the tooling is going to get better in the future, but for IE 11, you know, you might be stuck. But yeah, if you come up with something cool, definitely post it around. I'm sure the guys at in the hyperapp Slack would be very interested, and probably on like other places like Reddit. So yeah. But anyway, I think I'm calling it a night. So thanks for coming by and watching me fumble through Cypress. Hopefully it was fun. And yeah, it looks like next week maybe some style components. We'll see. Anyway, have yourselves all a good night.